Some of you are drowning in the vines this league. Some of you are still checking your stash, wondering where it all went or how do I even get it? And it's not one single reason why, it's many things all spinning together, all feeding into each other. I call it the wealth wheel. And don't worry, I know it sounds confusing, but follow along here. And once you see this wealth wheel, you can hopefully try to understand what factors influence your riches in this game. Build, skill, time, knowledge, luck. 5 drivers, and where you land on each one decides how rich you're actually going to be in this game. Quick note before we get into it. If you haven't seen my video on the 4 ways players actually earn currency, either by flipping, crafting for profit, juicing maps, or farming OP strats, or just playing with no real goal, that video was the how. This video's the why, the actual reason some people pull it off better than others. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you catch up by watching that video and come back later. These 5 drivers are what actually decides which of those methods works for you and how well. So the 2 go hand in hand. This isn't coming from a GGG interview today. This one's coming from you guys, from my own stream community and comments, and from about a shit ton of hours of my own experience playing this game. So today's a full breakdown, one driver at a time. How each one actually works, how they mess with each other, and why they can actually make you wealthy in POE2. Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Sammy. Let's get into this crazy theory of mine. All right, let's start with the first spoke in the Path of Exile 2 wealth wheel, your build. Because I think this one's actually more twofold than people expect. Here's what nobody's arguing about. Get your damage right, get your defenses right, cap your resistances, and you're clearing the end game and general end game easy. Many of you have commented this exact point over and over, but that's not in question today. Where the build wall shows up is at the top of the content food chain. Pinnacle bosses, endgame quest bosses, and the juiciest of juiciest farming strategies out there. Take, for example, Grand Expedition. There's the runic monsters enemy type that have vicious, unkillable modifiers like Empowered Reviving Minion, Summon Allies, Shared Life, and these runic monsters cannot be killed until you destroy the smaller minions around it. And it will either be immune to damage or will constantly heal itself back to full health until its minions are dead. And the whole time this is happening, you're trying to clear those ads, that thing is relentlessly chasing you down. Stop moving, stop killing, and guess what? You're dead. That's not a fight a mediocre build survives. That takes real damage and real defenses, and at the same time. And those top tier strategies also demand serious currency just to run. You need a ton of currency to buff your tablets, waystones. None of that is cheap. So here's my actual read on how your build influences wealth, based on my own experience, not something I've got a quote to back up. A weak build doesn't just limit what you can survive, it limits which parts of this entire wheel you can even access, which limits your earning potential. You can have all the time and knowledge, and those are other spokes in the wheel. If your build can't survive the content that pays out the most, none of that matters. Now, for you doubters out there, if you've cleared top tier content, and I mean the top of the food chain content, not just getting to the end game on a genuinely mediocre build, I want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments and prove me wrong, because that's not something I've personally heard or seen. The second spoke in the Path of Exile 2 wealth wheel, skill. And I'll be honest, this one took me a while to figure out how to even talk about, because I have no personal experience to pull from. I thought we took that out. Here's my own example. I'd call myself an average gamer. Average skill, nothing special. Right now, I'm playing a Druid Oracle Grim Pillars build, and I've cleared everything in this game. All the challenges, check, including that Grand Expedition example I just gave you. Sammy, average skill guy, cleared it all. So what's actually going on there? My read is that the build can substitute for skill. An S-tier build raises your floor so high that average mechanically skilled becomes enough to clear stuff that would demand real mastery on a weaker build. But here's the part that matters. I don't think that works the other way around. No amount of perfect dodge rolling saves you from a genuine one-shot. If your actual defenses are undertuned for that content, there's a hard gear floor that skill alone can't dodge around forever. So where does that leave skill on this wheel? Based on my own experience, it's the most substitutable driver here. Enough build bought through time and knowledge and a bit of luck, and average skill is generally enough. But skill by itself can't buy you out of needing the other four. That's just my take, and I want to be upfront that it's a take, not something I've got outside confirmation on. Curious if you guys see it the same way. The third spoke in the POE2 wealth wheel, time. And this is a big one. We've actually touched on pieces of this before, but let's go deeper. You guys know the FOMO side of this community, trying to keep up with the Joneses, and the Joneses in this case are streamers running 12 hours, 18 hours, sometimes 24-hour plus subathons on League launch. Love you, DM. By day 1 or 2, they're already deep into endgame, loaded with currency and OP gear, while most of us are still finishing the campaign. And here's why that matters mechanically, not just socially. Higher tier content drops higher tier level gear. Better item level means better crafting bases, better mod pools. Better gear means harder content becomes farmable. Harder content means more currency. And if you got the knowledge, better crafts to sell. It all compounds. Being first isn't just bragging rights, it's a real head start on the raw materials everything else on this wheel depends on. And this connects to something I actually found digging through an old GDC talk from one of GGG's co-founders, Chris Wilson. God bless, Chris. This is going back to 2019, so treat this as background on the long-term design thinking, not anything about the current patch specifically. He talked about deliberately building the hardest endgame content for roughly the top 10% of players. And he said it plainly, there's heavy overlap between that top 10% and streamers, because streamers tend to be the better, more dedicated players. His actual reasoning was that everyone else gets to watch and think. I wish I could get that strong, and GG sees that as a feature they're building toward on purpose, not something that just happens by accident. There's a real parallel here too. Jonathan himself has admitted to misjudging what average actually looks like, specifically talking about how long it takes an average player to kill a boss. His own gut sense was 8 to 20 seconds. Then he checked the real data, and it was closer to 2 minutes. If the guy running the studio can misjudge average that badly just from watching skilled play, it's not exactly surprising the rest of us do the same thing watching streamers. Character level plays into this, and it's really just time showing up in a different form. The more hours you put into one character, the more currency and knowledge you're sitting on to twink your next one, using what your main already earned to gear up an alt way faster than a fresh start ever could. Jonathan's actually talked about this directly, twinking with things like cheap movement speed boots to skip past normal early game slowdowns. So character level isn't really its own separate thing on this wheel. It's time and knowledge compounding across your whole account. not just one character. But here's the counter, and it's important. Time alone isn't enough. Without knowledge, you can grind 40 hours a week and still waste most of it. Farming the wrong thing, crafting badly, not knowing what's exactly worth your time, that's the whole point of this being a wheel and not a checklist. None of these 5 things work fully on their own. The 4th spoke in the Path of Exile 2 Wealth Wheel, knowledge. And this one touches basically everything else on the wheel. This game does not spoon feed you. It guides you in some ways, but the juicy stuff, you have to figure it out yourself. And that's exactly why some players love this game and why some players hate it. Same design choice, completely opposite reactions. If you watched my Crafting Navigator video, this is that same tension. Mastering this game feels earned for some of you, and it pushes others straight out of the game into wikis and guides just to function and survive. Crafting for profit is where this hits hardest. You need real knowledge to do it well. But crafting is not deterministic. There's genuine RNG in almost every step. Even with all the knowledge in the world, you can still break an item and torch a chunk of currency doing it. Here's the thing though. Knowledge doesn't remove the risk. It buys you more attempts at it. Someone who knows how to farm efficiently can go back to the bench and roll again and again until it hits. Someone without that knowledge doesn't get nearly as many shots, so the exact same RNG feels a lot crueler to them, even though the odds on any single roll are identical for each player. There's a reason GGG actively works against letting knowledge get too dominant too. Based on an old interview I found, Jonathan talked about why lesser runes exist at all. If a player simply knew to put the right rune in early, they'd be disproportionately stronger than someone who didn't, purely from knowing one thing. So they built a weaker option specifically to cap how much pure knowledge alone can swing things. And knowledge isn't just crafting either. The flipping strategy is pure knowledge play. You don't need 40 hours a week to flip well. You need to actually understand the market. I pulled real strategies from another creator, Majestic Life, a while back on another video of mine. Orb exchange chaining, catching underpriced leveling uniques, even server time zone arbitrage. None of that takes grinding. It takes knowing the market better than whoever's on the other end of the trade. And that trade, even existing at all, matters more than people think. Chris Wilson said years ago that without a real secure economy, an item you find has no actual weight. You can't even give it away if you wanted to. Knowledge of that market is what turns items into real wealth. All right, last one. And the one we all wished we had more of, luck. And this is the driver that can undo everything else on the wheel. And I have a real story for you. Last couple of nights, I've been farming ritual, hoping for a mage blood. Yes, hoping for a mage blood. Blake, you haven't done the same thing. Every single ritual I ran, completed them all, stepped up to the altar, spent every tribute, did every reroll, never once saw a mage blood. Some of you have told me you got one to drop on a regular map with 0 setup. That's not something you can plan around. That's just RNG, plain and simple. And luck touches everything here, not just big chase items. Loot drops, crafting outcomes, mod rolls on gear, waystones, tablets, all of it. Now, our favorite subject, rarity, does visibly affect your drops. Some other creators have done some videos on looking into where the return starts flattening out on how much rarity you have. I'm not going to point out the exact number and what works and what's the point of no return. since I haven't personally verified it, but it's out there if you guys want to dig into it. But worth knowing, GGG themselves, and I've stated this before, have said they want rarity gone eventually, mainly because it boosts everything at once instead of letting you aim at anything specific. Honestly, none of this is an accident. I found something from that same old GDC talk from Chris Wilson that explains why luck is everywhere in this game by design. GGG deliberately stacks what they call multiple overlapping axes of randomness, using breach as the example, monster density, rare chest spawns, boss variants, all randomizing independently at the same time. That's not RNG happening to you. That's RNG built in on purpose, layered specifically so no single run ever feels solved. And that's exactly why luck is the one spoke on this wheel you genuinely don't control. You can grind for more attempts, that's time. You can optimize exactly how you farm, that's knowledge. But at the actual moment of the roll, none of that guarantees anything. I had real time and real knowledge behind those ritual runs, and I still walked away with nothing. Luck can derail everything, even with time and knowledge fully on your side. So here's why I didn't call this a list, and I called it the wealth wheel. None of these 5 things work in isolation. Build gates which content you can even survive, which decides what parts of the other 4 you can access at all. Time compounds hard, but only if knowledge is steering it somewhere useful. Skill can get bought out by a strong enough build, but build itself needs time and knowledge to get there in the first place. And luck, it sits over the entire thing, able to undercut all of it no matter how much you've stacked everywhere else. That's the actual shape of getting rich in this game, in my humble opinion. Not one lever, 5, all pushing on each other at once. So that's the POE2 wealth wheel. Build, skill, time, knowledge, and luck. And honestly, I think most of the disagreements I see in my own video comments and in my live streams come down to 2 people looking at completely different spokes in this wheel and thinking they're arguing about the same thing. I want to know where you land on this. Which one or more of these 5 do you think has had the biggest impact on your wealth this league? One more thing before I go. I've got a survey running right now mapping out how POE2 players are actually earning currency this league. Are they earning by just playing, flipping, crafting for profit, juicing maps, and or doing OP farming strats, and roughly how much you're making from it? We've already got over 500 of you in there, which is honestly more than I expected. Thank you so much for all of you that participated already. If you have not filled it out, links in the description. Takes about 5 minutes. It's fully anonymous. We don't get or gather any personal information. And I'm going to be taking that data and I'm going to be breaking it down and sharing the real results in a dedicated video coming soon. All right, everybody, that's it for today. If you're new here, hit subscribe, hit that like button too if you got something out of this, and come catch me live on Twitch and YouTube every evening. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And as always, I hope to see you on the next one. Take care. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed. So get over it.